breaking barriers and bridging the gaps between patients and doctors. Welcome to Brainstorming with the Docs and your co-hosts, Dr. Glenn Harrison and Dr. Kolby Condos.
All right, everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of Brainstorming with Dr. Kolby Condos and Dr. Glenn Harrison. I'm Dr. Kolby Condos, for those of you that don't know me. Dr. Harrison, the man in black over there.
Yes. Hello, Dr. Kolby.
Did you like Johnny Cash, the original Man in Black?
I did, but we're not going to sing any Johnny Cash songs right now. It's been a long day.
No, I don't think he ever sang any songs about cholesterol.
No, I don't think so. But he might have had high cholesterol.
Oh, can you imagine? The amount of cigarettes and booze that man drank and smoked, it had to have been just like through the roof.
It had to have been. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to debunk the myths of cholesterol. I think this is a big topic, but we're going to compress it in a short period of time. I'm going to let you jump into it, Dr. Kolby, first. What is cholesterol?
So cholesterol is basically, it's a molecule that has like an ester and then a bunch of molecules attached to the backbone. That's like the chemical part.
And if we're not chemists?
So if we're not chemists, which I'm assuming most of us are, and I don't know, I haven't taken chemistry in like years.
Okay.
But basically when I explain cholesterol as like a very important molecule that your brain uses, or not, that your body uses for a ton of functions. So it uses it for, brain development. It uses it actually. All of your cells are basically molecules of cholesterol. It's really important for the production of hormones, whether that is, sex hormones like testosterone or progesterone. It also has to do with like aldosterone, which helps you regulate like your blood pressure and the amount of water that you hold in. And even the synthesis of vitamin D. So cholesterol is like a very, very important part of our diet and a part of our lives because our body really won't function without cholesterol. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of gotten this bad rap and everyone's like, oh man, high cholesterol is really, really bad, when that's not necessarily completely the truth. So I'm going to let you go into that part.
Okay, yeah. So that's the biggest thing. Cholesterol is seen as a bad, dirty word, but I think you did a great job of explaining how cholesterol is needed for survival. We can't exist without it. Cell membranes, you can't have a cell membrane without cholesterol. In fact, you can't even build a hormone. So all the sex hormones you talked about, thyroid hormones, all that, you cannot have any hormonal function without cholesterol. So cholesterol has been said it's, we're brainwashed, it's bad, but then there's different types of cholesterol and there's different particle sizes. And if you've looked at different resources on cholesterol, you hear of all these different things. So to simplify.
Keep it simple, my man.
Yeah. Okay. So two major forms of cholesterol. There is the big fluffy cholesterol. This is called LDL. My patients call it lousy cholesterol. That's how they remember it, but it's not lousy, but we'll get back to that. And then there's the high density lipoprotein, also known as the HDL cholesterol. My patients call happy cholesterol. So the liver makes these cholesterols. The liver makes the HDL cholesterol. Think of it as a marble, and it goes through all of your arteries and then comes back and goes through your heart, your whole cardiovascular system, and comes back. High HDL is associated with higher improved heart health because HDL cholesterol is seen as a cleaning cholesterol. It does more, but it's seen as a cleaning cholesterol. So high HDL, everybody says you have a healthy heart. But then the liver also makes a type of cholesterol. It's big and fluffy like a pillow. It's called the lousy cholesterol, the LDL. So think of the marble goes through the pipes and comes back, but then there's a big fluffy pillow. It's floating through the arteries, and it should make its rounds through the cardiovascular system. But what happens is if there's an injury in the artery, imagine a little tear on the inside of your pipes of your artery, and this little tear creates a little bump. The marble rolls by, the HDL cholesterol rolls by, but the big fluffy pillow snags. And it snags, and then what happens? The liver's waiting for more of the LDL to come back into circulation, back to it, and it says, I guess we need to make more, so it makes more, so sends more of these big fluffy pillows, and it snags at another injury in the artery, and then it keeps making more, and it snags, and then finally, it makes enough where it comes back, and the liver's like, okay, I made enough, I'm doing good. And then you get your blood taken and your LDL is high, your lousy cholesterol is high, and then the doctor tells you you're going to have a heart attack. Well, the LDL cholesterol has been demonized, but it has reasons. There's reasons why it's snag on the inside of the artery, and it's doing it to fix It's doing it to repair the artery. So the cholesterol isn't the problem. It's the injury in your cardiovascular system that's creating the snagging of cholesterol and the buildup of cholesterol. You fix the arteries, you get rid of inflammation in your cardiovascular system, you'll naturally won't need the cholesterol, and your cholesterol levels will come down. So that's the story of the pillow and the marble.
I love it. So basically, another metaphor or whatever you want to say is like if there's a bend in a river, right? Or a, like, you know, like a log sticking out in the river, and then a bunch of other debris floats by and it just dams up right there, right?
Exactly. So then the cholesterol builds up, and then you'll start to see higher blood pressure, and then your heart is struggling, and then suddenly you're high risk for a heart attack.
Right. And basically what can happen without going too far into it is that dam breaks loose and it goes and it lodges somewhere else, basically further down the line, which can cause like, ischemia, which is basically lack of blood flow to that tissue. That's where you can, like stroke. Yeah. Or you can get even a myocardial infarct if that, or a heart attack if the cholesterol goes down into the lower portions of your coronary arteries. So not good stuff. But like you talked about, it's not necessarily the issue with LDLs. You want to look at the other concomitants that are causing the elevation of the LDLs. So if you look at the inflammatory markers and they're really, really high in your blood work, and then you look at that and you're like, okay, my LDLs are also really, really high, then there's really a strong causality there. So
yeah. So
to have the blood work.
Mm-hmm. So when I see LDL high on a panel, I don't quickly run to, oh, it's going to be a heart attack. Of course, if someone has high LDL, I want to make sure they got their medical doctor on their team. But I look at it as a vascular or an arterial inflammatory condition. Meaning, if you have any kind of inflammation in your body, your arteries aren't separate from it. So your arteries are naturally going to be holding on some inflammation, meaning some injuries in your arteries. So if you have any inflammation in your body, you're going to have vascular inflammation. That's going to lead to these arterial tears, and then you're going to have high cholesterol. So if you get rid of inflammation in the body, your cholesterol comes down. That's why I call LDL cholesterol as a non-specific inflammatory marker. Because if you get inflammation down in your body, your cholesterol will come down by itself.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I think it's also important when we talk about the different types of cholesterols is really the only cholesterols that we get that we don't manufacture, and we need cholesterols, is a lot of it is from actually like animal fats. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
I'll let you jump into that one. I think you want to jump into it.
Yeah. So I always encourage people to eat healthy, balanced diets, and that includes animal fats, proteins, healthy fats that aren't from an animal source, like avocados or coconut or whatever, and then just having a healthy, diverse diet as far as fruits and veggies. But the big part of when we look at how our brain is derived, our brain is just basically a big ball of butter sitting in our cranial vault, and you need animal proteins and fats to really make that as I guess, developmentally, like when we're a kid, that's the importance of eating like a diverse diet and eating like a really balanced diet, is because it can really help with brain development in kids and infants. But then also as adults, I have actually patients who are suffering from like chronic depression. And when you look at all of the markers, it really comes down to the fact, the last one I had actually was a vegan. Mm-hmm. And when we looked at, she was having chronic migraines, we're looking at why. Well, it was because she actually didn't have any she didn't have any cholesterol. When you look at it, and both of them were, obviously her HDLs were higher because she was eating, a lot of healthy fats that way, but and her LDLs were good. But then you look at her ability to make, sex hormones, mm-hmm. and thyroid hormones, and her vitamin D level was in the toilet. I think she was at actually like a 13, which is really low. So it's really important for brain development. It's really important for the production of hormones. It's important for the production of bile salts actually in your liver. You have to have cholesterol for the production of bile salts. And I mean, you just have to, have it,
Yeah. Maybe a good question. Something that maybe you could touch on is, we always hear the fad, and there's all of this stuff where, you eat animal fats and you're going to have a heart attack. You eat animal fats, it's going to drive your cholesterol up, and it's going to plug up your arteries. We always hear about that. Maybe you want to touch on that, debunk some of the myths with that.
That's false. I don't really know how else to put it. That's not true. I mean, I'm sure if you're eating nothing but animal fats and proteins, and that there's probably some truth to that. But it's really important that you eat animal fats and animal proteins, because basically those amino acids and those fat molecules, those cholesterol molecules, are like essential building blocks for your brain and for everything else.
Yeah, I think where the animal protein and the animal fats and saturated fats got such a bad name they got such a bad reputation is because they saw people with higher intakes of animal fats and animal protein, they were ending up with more cardiovascular disease. But what we know now is not all animal products are the same. If you have an extremely inflamed animal,
what do you feed your animal? You know, are they grass fed? Are they through their entire life, or are they sitting in a feedlot in Kansas or Nebraska being fed corn their whole life? You know, there is a difference.
Yeah, there is. It's so much so that beef that is raised in a very healthy manner with a very anti-inflammatory diet, if we want to call it that, grass-fed, grass-raised, they're anti-inflammatory. The meat is actually anti-inflammatory. So much so it's almost as high as fish oil when it comes to an anti-inflammatory outcome. So when we hear the media and everything say, oh, animal protein, plug your arteries, you're going to have a heart attack. Recognize that not all animal protein is the same. That's number one. A clean animal, an uninflamed animal is going to actually be healthy for you. It's going to give you heart benefits. The next thing that I see as a problem is the quantity. In North America, Canada, United States, the amount of animal protein people are eating, it's 85% of what's on their plate. There is no fiber. And the fiber helps digest that protein. And the plant sterols play a big role in getting rid of cholesterol, bad cholesterol, LDL, keeping the vascular system healthy. So when you hear that, oh, I can't eat this animal protein because I'm going to have a heart attack, recognize two things. Not all animal protein is the same. And if it's processed meats, yeah, that's going to give you a heart attack for other reasons, inflammatory reasons. And remember the quantity. You don't have to have, what is it, a third, a quarter, less than a quarter of what's on your plate, high quality animal protein for most individuals. And that's enough.
Yep, absolutely. I think a perfect example of this too is if you look at, people who live at or near like the Arctic Circle, and they survived off of like whale blubber, off of seal blubber and all this kind of things. And not only they use it for like lighting and stuff like that, but they ingested it. The likelihood that they died from a cardiovascular incident, pretty low, right? They were mostly going to die from exposure or something like that. And they ate way more animal fat than most of us do. But again, it's the source, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talked about the source of animal protein and stuff like that, a lot of that has to do with like arachidonic acid and stuff like that that's stored in the animal fat and the animal protein. We're not going to talk about that because that's like down the rabbit hole again. And we're going to try to not do that. But I think that what you basically summed up is healthy, clean, if you want to call it that, sources of fat and protein from your animals, whether you're a deer hunter or you're getting it from an ethically sourced farm or whatever. Just really consider the quality of your product, I guess.
Exactly. And to give the listeners a little bit of something that hopefully is a bit of a mind bender. I don't know if you heard about this story. It was out of Canada, and there was a feed delivery truck going to a big factory farm in Canada, in rural Canada, and it lost control, and it tipped over off the highway going into this big farm, this corporate farm, and it was loaded with Skittles. Skittles Skittles was the main food source that they were feeding those animals, and we know what's in a Skittle. Nothing that resembles food. It's highly sugar and processed everything, and they were feeding these animals, and it probably wasn't the only farm that is doing that because there's no regulations on that. They're getting weight on them immediately, super quick. So then when they bring them to market, their animals develop faster. That animal is probably the worst thing for you. So have a good idea. If you know what your food is feeding on, that's going to be the smartest thing to do. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe to touch on here, the next thing is, if someone has high cholesterol, what are the two avenues first off, let's jump into the pharmaceutical model.
So yeah, with the pharmaceutical model, one of the first things that they're going to do is they're probably going to put you on a statin, right? Statins have been shown to be effective, but they come with their own avenue of problems. High statin use has been linked to like high liver enzymes, actually really, really hard on your liver. It's really hard on your muscles. You can actually develop a condition called multiple systems atrophy if you're not careful. And that's where, if you are on a statin, and also it depletes your ubiquinone stores. So, your CoQ10 stores, it uses that. So if you are on a pharmaceutical, make sure that you're getting tested for, your liver enzymes, your muscle enzymes, and then it'd be beneficial for you to start on a CoQ10. There's some other ones. That's probably the most common that I run into.
The one I see is diabetes, statin-induced diabetes. It drives up your risk of diabetes by about 400%. Is that it? Just 400? Yeah, it's only 400. So it's, it's not too bad. And then of course, I know you're working with brains all day. You're in the neuro world. So you probably, early stage dementia. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. In fact, one of my patients that came in, was what they would call like chronic pain syndrome or chronic fatigue, is what he had been diagnosed prior to coming to me. And actually nothing fit. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm struggling with words. I'm struggling with remembering where I put things. I'm struggling with my mood is shifting a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sore everywhere. All my muscles hurt. And it was like not a normal muscle hurt. It was like, he's like, sitting down on the couch hurts, standing up to get into my pickup truck hurts. And I actually run some, he'd said on his paperwork that he was taking a statin. But when I actually asked him, I was like, I literally want you to write down every single medication, every single supplement you're taking. He was actually on 4 statins from 4 different medical providers, and no one knew about it because he had not told any of the other healthcare providers that he was on one. So he actually was in the early stages of multiple systems atrophy, and I sent him back to his primary to have that adjusted. And fortunately, he was able to make like a bit of a recovery, and he was able to regain some of that cognitive function. And also, the diffuse muscle pain improved, but it was pretty serious. So it's something that you definitely need to be aware of.
Yeah. Statins definitely have a bad rap. They're kind of like, I think there's a place for them. Make sure you're working with your medical doctor. That's the tools the medical community has to use for cholesterol. And if you remember my little story about the marble and the pillow, a statin is exactly like a wine cork on your liver. So if your liver was a wine bottle, and it's trying to push out cholesterol, statin is exactly like a wine cork, plugging up the end of the liver, and your cholesterol will drop. And everybody will say, it's great. The moment you stop the statin, you pull out the wine cork, your cholesterol will go up to those sky-high levels. They were actually higher than they originally were, and then they come back down because the liver is aware that there's injuries in the arteries. And it's trying to push that LDL to start fixing the arteries, but it can't. So the comment, I'll just say it's a lie, that if you have high cholesterol, that means you're going to have high heart disease. It's an association. It's high cholesterol is an indication there's injuries in your arteries, which should be looked at. And, our little disclaimer in our podcast, talk to your MD about this. They're going to give you a statin. And then what we're going to say is make sure you do everything you can from a health standpoint to get rid of inflammation in your body so you don't need the statin and you don't get dementia early. My neighbor, I have lots of neighbors, but I have one neighbor. He's on a list of medications and he started the statin a few years ago. His memory is pretty well gone now. And his wife, she's losing him.
Yeah, and that's terrible, right? That's not only going to affect him, that's affecting her. It's affecting their kids if they have any.
That's right.
That's why it's really important that you can explore any other avenue that you can. And that even if you decide not to explore the other avenues, that at least you're aware of them. Yeah. I think that's one of the big issues I have is that no one's made aware of this.
That's no one's exactly right.
And that was really the motive behind this specific segment of this podcast that we're doing, because we want people to be aware that there are actually other options as far as the treatment of high cholesterol.
So now that we talked about the problems with the conventional model, what are some ideas or concepts from the natural model?
So basically what I look at when someone comes in and they have high cholesterol, I break what type of cholesterol first, because if you're looking at total cholesterol versus LDL versus HDL and all this stuff. But really what I'm going to do is again, like we talked about, I'm going to run an inflammatory marker, because then I'm going to check, like, if like you said, it's a non-descriptive, or a non-specific inflammatory marker to have LDL elevated. So I'll run like a CRP for inflammation and see what their CRP level is. And then I'm just going to really talk about the importance of changing like diet. If they're eating things like, high inflammatory foods, corn,
cows that are eating M&Ms and Skittles,
cows that are eating Skittles and corn and whatever. So we're going to look at their diet. We're going to look at their lifestyle. We're going to really press upon them the importance of eating a healthy and balanced diet, because like you said, the plants, the fiber in the plants and the sterols can help to regulate the cholesterol levels. I think another important thing that maybe we didn't talk about a whole lot is that actually some of that cholesterol, like the LDL, can get caught in that fiber as it gets moved down the GI tract, so you don't actually absorb all of it. That's kind of important. That's the whole thing of like eating a balanced meal, right?
Yeah.
Eating one big chunk of animal fat and protein. And then like exercise, we can put them on supplements. I'll do that sometimes if they need help with like a jump start. So maybe they need help with, like a meal replacement or whatever we're trying to do. But ultimately I'd like all my patients to get it from diet and exercise.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of the same way. Start balancing your life to balance your cholesterol. Heart disease is one of those things that people, it comes on and then they say, oh, they just had a heart attack out of nowhere. There's always a reason. It's never from nowhere. And one of the LDL and cholesterol test is like the test really doesn't tell you much. So if you're looking to understand how your heart health is, don't stop at cholesterol. I've seen people with really good cholesterol numbers, but they had a high risk in their family. And their family, the genetic, the familial component to heart disease is pretty high. So if you have a family with strokes and heart disease, you should probably, I would recommend one of the best things to do is do something called a calcium score test. And it's just a CT exam. It's a picture. It's non-invasive, but they take a picture of your heart and they measure all the arteries of your heart, the coronary arteries, and look for calcium. And this picture will show you how much calcium is in the arteries. And if you see calcium in your arteries, it's guaranteed that there's plaque in that artery. And if there's plaque in that artery, the more calcium equals the more plaque. And the more plaque there is, the risk of blocking off one of those coronary arteries, which ultimately leads to strokes, or I should say heart attacks. So, and starving the heart muscle for blood and oxygen. So a calcium score test is probably one of the best. I know there's information on my website about it. And we can even put it in the comments below, some resources on calcium score. There's also a great documentary called The Widowmaker. The Widowmaker, you can find it online all over. And they talk exactly about this calcium score test. But it's the best test as a preemptive measure to get a heart screening. I do it on probably 80% of my patients. Everybody over the age of 55, I run them through that calcium score. And I've caught things where there was expected to be a cardiovascular incident within 1 to 2 years, and we were able to turn it around. So
that's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, obviously some super good information. I hope that everyone got some benefit from this. Obviously, if you or someone you know or love is suffering from high cholesterol or perceived high cholesterol, please share this information with them, right? If you haven't checked out any of our other talks, we do have some other talks. We talked recently about, the thyroid and some exercise and stuff like that too. So a lot of current stuff that's going around. If you like it, please continue to listen. Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions or comments, or you guys would like to reach out to us, maybe you have a topic you'd like us to cover, or maybe you have more questions about one of the topics we've already covered, you can reach out to us. The best way to get a hold of us is on our websites. Mine is www.northlakeschiropractic.com, or you can find me on Facebook. Our Facebook page is North Lakes Chiropractic and Functional Neurology. And Dr. Glenn in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, our website is probably the best, www.drgharrison.com, or just Google the Center of Functional Medicine Denver. You'll find us, and there's loaded resources on our website. You can always send us emails and questions with all our contact information there.
So I guess that's it, my man. We'll come up with something else for the next time. and I will talk to you soon.
All right. You have a great day.